What's up, y'all? Jason here again. Welcome back. We are going into episode 2 today for full site build. In the last episode, we got everything set up. In this episode, we are going to dive into Etch and our index template, along with our skip links, header, and footer. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So from the front end, we can either click Edit with Etch in our admin bar, or from Pages, we can click Edit with Etch here. I always like to just open it in a new tab. Now, when you open it for the first time, you're not going to see a whole lot here. You're going to have a blank canvas. On the right-hand side, you can see is going to be where our structure panel is. We have some elements along the bottom here, save in the bottom right, a link to the front end. On the left-hand side, we have our content hub, our media hub, our templates, style manager, loop manager. We have our quick access to the automatic CSS dashboard. We have ability to hide and show panels. We can hide our interface, and we can jump back to the editor. So the very first thing I'm going to do is on the bottom, I'm going to click our section element here. And you can see that adds it to our structure panel for us. It not only gives us a section, but an inner container as well. It exposes the HTML down here. It puts in some automatic styles from Etch that are set up in a way that they can easily be overridden with any CSS because they have no specificity. From here, we have a CSS panel, a JavaScript panel, and our element settings panel. If we jump over to our hide show panel, we can go ahead and turn some of these on and off. So for example, I do not want the JavaScript editor open because I'm not going to need that right now. Everything else I think I am going to leave on here, and we'll dive through what some of these are as we go along. In the last video, you saw me use automatic CSS. This is a CSS framework built specifically for WordPress for Era 4. It uses some of the most new and innovative ways to use CSS in building things. It's a great base to start with. It lets us create a bunch of stuff on the front end and not have to worry about it on the back end. Makes building very consistent. It makes it easy to be scalable and maintainable, and using a very consistent set of CSS throughout our entire project. A lot of it, thanks to the name automatic CSS, comes right out of the box, that you don't even have to do anything like fluid typography. Granted, we did go in and change some of our stuff here, but for the most part, I don't have to set up anything else besides a few variables. So I use automatic CSS on every single project now, and I absolutely love it and think it's well worth the money that I paid for it. And I would highly advise anyone else go check it out. If you don't use automatic CSS, I still recommend using a framework, but for the time and effort it would take to build your own framework, I don't see it paying off more than purchasing automatic CSS. So that's my little plug there. I'm going to go ahead and exit that since we set that up in the last video. All right, so we got a section built into our canvas here. I'm going to change this into a header, and I'm going to change that. So you can see I can click right in here and change my tag, or I can come down to my element settings here, click my drop down, and choose from a handful of already created ones. You'll notice header was not in here, but it's gives me the ability to change that and set it however I want. Now from here, I always like to set my container label to inner. And you can see that we lost some of our styling here. And that's because automatic CSS was automatically targeting sections and giving us some spacing. In this case, because we've changed it to a header, it's no longer there. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go over to the Etch docs, and specifically under the native components going down to nav basic, we can import different components here. And actually I'm going to come back to this, but just wanted to quickly point out that they do have components built for us. We just need to add a slot. So in order to do that, I gotta do some other work here first. So another thing I'm going to do inside my header is I'm going to add another flex div. So down at the bottom, I click this flex div, which is going to be a full width div set to display flex automatically. I'm going to move that above my inner, and I'm going to call this a top bar. So if we go back and look at our project here, you can see I have this top yellow bar here, as well as our main header right here with our nav and everything. So from here, we're just going to split those two up, jump back into the builder. Inside of our top bar, we are going to, let's see here, probably set another flex div inside of that. And from here, we're going to need, if we go back and look, some text, some icons, and a link as well. So each of those I'm going to wrap in another div as well. Just going to duplicate that. I'll call this the payment wrapper and phone wrapper. Call this my top inner. In my payment wrapper, I have text, and then I have some icons, and I believe there was 4 of them. If I go back and look, 1, 2, 3, 4. I can duplicate that a total of 4 times. And I probably should have done this, renamed it first, and then duplicate it. We'll call this payment text. And then in here, we need both an icon. So you can see down at the bottom, I'm clicking on my SVG because that's what all my icons are. And I need an anchor link as well. So again, I'm going to change this to a phone icon just because I want those to be different than up here. And call this phone number. All right. So that's a good start there. Inside my main inner, I need a couple of things. The first one is going to be a div for my logo. And actually what I think I want to do is wrap that in an anchor link. So I'm going to move that up to the top. You can see you can easily drag and drop things in there. And you can see I haven't styled anything yet. I'm just getting everything I can into the page here. Okay, in here I'm going to add in an image. And because I was clicked on my anchor link, you can see that it actually put my image right inside of my link, which is perfect. I don't need the text from this, so I can delete this. And inside my div here is going to be where we end up putting our slots later on. So this will be, I'm going to leave this for now. And we're going to call this our nav wrapper for now. All right. Let's see what else we need in here. All right, and I totally realized that we are doing all of this on the home page. So you can see I'm actually opened up to the home page, which I did not want to do. So what I'm going to do is I am going to right click and copy. You can see it asked me if I want to allow this. I'm going to click copy. I'm not even going to hit save. I'm going to come over to templates and find our index template over here. So these are pre-installed automatically when you set up Etch with your Etch theme and Etch plugin. So I'm going to click edit, and now you can see we are here on our index as it shows up in the top right here. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to click paste, and it puts my header inside of my main, which I don't want. I'm going to pull that out if I can. And we are out of there. On my main, it already has my main ID set, which is perfect, and it has post content inside, which is going to automatically pull in the content from whatever page this is showing. All right, I'm going to click save here quick just so we don't lose anything. I'm going to open all of this stuff back up. I'm going to call this my logo. And the other thing I want to do is I'm actually going to wrap this in a figure. So if you right click, I can go wrap in a div. And I'm going to call this a figure. And I'll call this my logo wrapper. Call this my logo link. I like to name all this stuff because then we can come down and bem all of this. I just want to see if there is anything left in here that I need to cover. And I think we are good to go. I hit save again. All the way up in my header, I'm going to right click and we're going to create BEM classes. So you can see this automatically put classes on everything for me, so I don't have to manually enter them. In the case I do want to go back and add them, we can do it a few different ways. I can click this little plus icon right here and it pulls up my selector quick add bar where I can add in an ID, I can add classes, I can add data attributes, I can add pretty much any sort of selector I need right from here. I can also do it right inside my HTML if I wanted to. I can add it down in the class field down here. There's lots of different ways, and if I didn't have a class on here like this, you can see there's no way to style it yet. So if I click here, I can just get my header back added right in. In my CSS panel, you will see I have a lot of icons here, which you may not have recognized before. This is what they call the CSS quick actions. So this gives you the ability, similarly like you would see in a style panel, which this is kind of the next era of CSS inputs. Instead of being in a style panel, we're in an actual CSS panel, but we still have the ability to use some of those quick actions. Like if we want to do a display of flex with a flex row or a flex column or grid, it can automatically enter some of this stuff for us. So One thing I'm going to do right off the gate is on my top bar, I want to come in and add a background color. So you can see on this icon, it has background color white. It pre-fills a variable there. If I want to, I can right click it and it brings up a menu which I can add in a different background color. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my primary as my name, and I'm going to go var primary, which is my color for my primary color. I'm going to hit enter. I can set that to be my favorite if I want. So now anytime I click on this quick action, it's automatically going to put that in for me. So I have that set to my top bar. On this one, I want to set it to white. So I'm going to right click and click white. You can see it does have a fallback. It's up to you whether you want to set that yourself in the future. I'm not going to right now just because I know I'm going to be sticking with ACSS and I don't plan on reusing all of this. So let's see where this gets us from here, and we'll kind of move along through all of this. I think the very first thing I'm going to do is come over to our logo. I am going to come over here, and actually, just so you guys can see how we do this, I want to find a text field, and we'll just use this payment text up top here. If I click into my content field over on the right and I put in curly brackets, I can target my options page from Metabox. So if I do options.metabox, you can see it starts to pull in some content here. So from here, I can start to go into my biz settings options page. And from here, I want to specifically go get my logo. So what we're going to be looking for is our logo URL. So first thing I need to do is target my biz settings. So biz underscore settings. Now, one thing to note, if you do biz dash settings instead of underscore, you're going to have to change how you set this up a little bit to make sure that it still pulls everything in. You just have to put your biz settings inside square brackets and quotes so it pulls it in properly. But in this case, because we went with the underscore, we don't need to do that. So now I'm going to hit another period. I'm going to go logo, and I'm going to go URL. So you can see now it is pulling my URL. Now I can go a step further, and if I go into my docs here and we go down to dynamic data, we can go look at modifiers and our basic modifiers. And I apologize, that's not the one I wanted. Dynamic data here is I can go permalink.relative. I think I can still do that here. So let's give it a try. If not, we can stick with what we're doing. I'm going to go dot relative, and that did not work. So I'm going to take that back off, and we're just going to leave it. The reason I wanted to do this on the text field is so you guys could see what data was showing up here, because it's much easier when you're not exactly sure what you're targeting, how to locate the data. Now, eventually, again, as I'm building this, if I go to my plugins, we are in Etch version 1.0 beta 9. So we're not even to a fully released version 1.0 at this point. So still very, very early on, but it's still very powerful to everything we can do. But there's just still some nice to haves that are not there yet. So in this case, eventually there's going to be a way for us to have a UI to go and get all this, so we don't have to just manually type it all. But in this case, I'm just going to take this. I'm going to take that out. I'm just going to put in some filler text there so that doesn't disappear on me. I'm going to come back down to my logo and my image, and I'm going to put that in my source field. And you can see I get my logo now. Perfect. For my alt, I'm going to do some curly brackets, and for this one, I can do, I believe if we go back to our dynamic data, we can do this dot, let's see where it is. I believe it's going to be under our site keys. Site name is the one we're looking for. This dot site name, or site dot name, sorry. I don't need the this in the front. And then I can put logo in. So that way it's automatically going to pull the site name, which is Mr. Plumber Inc., and put the logo at the end. All right, I'm not going to add any styling in there yet. I'm just, again, trying to get everything kind of pre-filled in here as we go. If I go back to my diagram here, we got to add in we accept for our text up top here. And then we have all of our icons that we need to add in. All right, and of course it's not going to show me this. I'm going to click save. I'm going to go back to my media. And if we're not careful and we leave our media here, there's a kind of annoying bug, which eventually will be not a problem because we won't even need happy files because Etch is going to have its own native media library. But as of right now, we want to go up to all files and make sure we're clicked on everything. If I come back over here, I click save. I'll do it again just to be safe. I'm going to hit refresh. And now when I go in and expand all this out again, for my icon, I click to select, and now you can see I have them all again. So the very first one we're going to do is Visa. I'm going to add that in. The second one we're going to add in is going to be MasterCard. Third one we're going to add in is going to be Amex. And why don't I see that one? Maybe I missed that one. All right, we'll add Discover in for now. And let me double check to see in my media if I never actually put that in. Give me 1 second here to go search for that. And it looks like I did miss that somehow. All right, we got that in. I'm gonna click save here quick. Hit refresh just so it pulls from the media library again. I always like to refresh just in case. I can hit this expand all so I don't have to go back in and try and get each one. I'm going to move that up one, and this one is now going to be my American Express one. And you can see I have all 4 of those in here now. We still have our yellow background up here. We have our text. Down here, we need our icon for our phone, which is right here. And then for our phone number, again, we're going to do the same thing we just did with our options page. And if I scroll down, we should be able to see all of that info if I figure out where that actually was. There it is. Biz settings, and I want my phone number, I believe it was. Phone.pretty, and there it is. Now for this, I'm going to do the same thing, and this one is phone link, and in the front we're going to do tell, so that way it links our phone number, and if I hover over it, you can see in the bottom of our screen that we get the right number showing. All right. So far that looks good. I do notice that when I hover, we're getting that yellow color still. So I'm going to go back to my links. Forgot to change that on hover. So we're going to change that to secondary. All right. Just an easy quick fix. And now it's not blending back into the yellow. Okay. So in my payment wrapper, I'm going to go ahead and set this to flex row, putting them all next to each other. We are going to need a gap on here, and let's see here. Sometimes you gotta look through these because I don't have them fully memorized yet. We got our content gap, and we want to center everything this way. And I want everything to go to the end. Actually, we'll go center on this one for now. Trying to look at what my actual text is here. We want this to be, I'm going to go font weight, and I'm going to go 600 on this, make it a little bit bigger. And my color, if I look on here, oh, I did have font weight right there. Color, I don't want black, but I want my secondary dark. So you can see I have auto expansion here for my variables, which is really nice. And now we're going to come over to the icons because I need these to be a little bit smaller. If I go and look at my actual icons on my other screen, it looks like I need them to be, let's get my, if I go block size, that's going to be equal to my height. I don't need min. I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to just take this off because I want these to actually be a specific size. And that ends up being a little bit too small here, I think. So let's try 25, 30. I think 30 will be good. And we can also do a toRem function. So it automatically converts that to rem, which is good to do. All right. what do we want to do next? And it looks like we're getting some interesting sizing on that. I want to go to the front end. Sometimes when you save your index, you'll get this warning message. If you come in, go down to your permalinks, hit save, come back, hit refresh, it'll be there. I want to go in and inspect here real quick to see what is giving us that width. So you can see that my calculated output here is that rem now instead of getting the pixel size that we put in. All right, our width is getting set to 512. Gotcha, because that's naturally what those were when I downloaded them. Okay, so if we go inline size to max content, and of course that did not work. Sometimes just gotta play around here a little bit. It seems these were not sized all perfectly, which makes this a little bit harder to get figured out. I'm going to go back to 40, 45. I think we'll stick with that for now. You can see my Discover card is a little bit smaller for some reason. I may have to, let's see if we can do this. Nth last child. So it always helps when you're trying to do some of these is to put a border on it to see if you're getting the right thing. Okay, so I needed that, and if I go last child, and for some reason it's not doing that, so we'll just stick with this and we'll go with 5, and it's targeting in that. So we can take this off and we can set our block size to be a little bit bigger. I'll have to look at that icon. Maybe I'll have to find a different one so that I don't have to mess with my sizing too much here. And I actually think I'm going to take this off and just let that be smaller for right now. And going back to here, I want my gap to be smaller. So I'm going to change this to space XS. And I think we'll stick with that for now. All right, next, let's come up to our phone wrapper And this, we're going to display flex as well. We want these to go to the start and center. And then we want our icon to also be in line of 30 pixels, 25, I like 25. And again, I'm going to go to my toRem function on that, which I don't remember if I finished doing that on this one. I did not. This just helps with accessibility, being able to zoom in and zoom out on these things. All right, so we got phone number in here, and we got it all lined up. And our phone wrapper, let me take a look here. I'm going to go inline size of max content here as well. So now it hugs everything. And I'm going to put a gap in of space excess there as well. And that's too big. So I'm going to go divided by 2. And it did not auto calc that for me. So I'll just wrap it myself. There we go. I want too many of those on, and I feel like that looks pretty good. If I come down to my icon, I want to change my color of that as well. Now, anytime we're using an icon, we're going to want to go to strip color, and we do color of secondary dark. It's hard to tell if that actually changed or not. What I want to do is come up to these icons and do the same thing and see if they change, and they did not. So this is where we can try fill, and that worked on that one. And that appeared to work on that one as well. The other thing I want to do is on here, I want my font weight to be 600 here as well. And I think we are good to go on that part. So now we come up to our top inner, and we want these to be flex row, and we want those to be to the end. And what we are going to need is some inline padding inline of gutter. So that makes sure it doesn't touch the edges on us. And on top of that, we want to go padding block of space XS, and that looks pretty good to what we had up here. Might be a little bit different on our sizing here, but we can play around with that and figure out a little bit later what we want to get that down to. Maybe I'll drop this down just a little bit. 25 and 40. Maybe what I need to do is actually take the block size off. Yep, that's what I need to do. So now you can see my Discover card came back to size. So I'm going to stick with that there. I noticed on my phone number, I want my color to be the secondary dark. So I'm going to do that there, and it does not look like it overrode that. So one thing we can actually do is use a variable here, or target, and go link color and override our link variable there. So that's just a cool way to override things sometimes that are part of the framework when you need to. All right, so our top bar is set. I get better click save so we don't lose anything. All right, next I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a component. I right click, create component, and from here I'm going to click save. In my nav wrapper, I want to create 2 slots. So at the bottom here, you can see I have a slot, and I'm going to create 2 of them. One, I'm going to call my center slot, and the next one I'm going to call right. So they're going to be in 2 different spots here that we're going to be able to go through. All right, up on my inner, I need to set this to flex row, and I need to set my inline size to, let's go 150 pixels. Helps if you type that right. That's probably too small. Let's try 200. I like 200. And again, I'm going to go 2 rem on that to get that function in there. All right, that is set up. You can see I have my nav wrapper here, which I want to set to a flex row and my inline size of 100%. So it takes up as much room as possible. Again, on my inner, I want to set my padding inline to gutter. So that ensures everything stays off the gutter, or stays off the edges. And all right, I'm going to click save. I'm gonna click exit. And now you can see on the front here, I have 2 open slots. Now what I'm gonna do is come back over to our nav basic. I'm gonna copy my component here, and I'm going to click paste, or Control V. Sometimes it takes a moment for it to do it, so we'll see if it did it, and there it is. I'm going to pull that up into the center. I'm going to copy my burger, do the same thing. The other thing you can do is just right click, click paste, and you can see it brought that in as well. I want to put that in my slot there as well. All right, so from our component here, now we have a loop that we're after, and we have a nav aria label. And what I'm going to do is change this to header menu, because I'm going to have some footer menus below, which I think based on how long this video has been going, I am going to do in the next episode. So we'll just stick with the header for this one, and then we'll go back to the footer in the next one. All right, in my slot right, we had a button before, so I'm going to go ahead and click my anchor link, and here I'm going to have this say get free quote. I'm going to add a class, and we'll call this header CTA. All right. And then I'm also going to put a button primary on that, and you can see I get my button. One of the reasons I wanted to put this on here is because I'm going to actually target a few of the items for the button. First thing I'm going to do is the button block padding, and let's see if I can override that. Sometimes you may need to go to the front end and take a look here. And button padding block. I just had them backwards. All right. So that's not actually what I wanted to set it to. I just want this to be space XS. Make that a little bit smaller maybe. And one thing I want to check on this, so I go back into my buttons, do we have a minimum block size? I don't know that we do. Does not look like we do, so let's go back to the front here for a second. And even with, I think what I actually need to do is change my order here. As you can see, we're still getting some overlap from our home page from before. So I'm going to go into my content hub and pages and go navigate to my home page, and I'm going to delete all of that. Click save. Back to my templates, and we'll come back here. So now when I view the front end, we don't have all of that other stuff there. And somehow it appears we lost our component here. I'm going to add those 2 slots back in. It's always fun when you have to redo work here. Center and right. And on this, I want to set this to I think end and center for now. We'll come back to that in a minute. Save, exit, save. Again, I'm not sure how I managed to lose that, and sometimes I actually might be able to, yep. So you can see I have all of these in here, so I'm not exactly sure what happened. I probably did not hit save, which you know I'm really good at doing. And then in here, we want that button. And there we go. Now that spacing is looking right. So there must have been some issue I had there before. Not exactly sure what that was coming from. Okay, so if we go back and look at our project here, we can see our menu is actually centered. So if I come back in here and I'm gonna actually click save here quick, go to the front end. I want to double check something. Okay, so we do have our nav labeled there. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to go back in and edit my component quick. And you can see that I can't actually see my component anymore in there. I'm going to make my top bar disappear. I actually think I'm going to take this and remove the inline size of it. And I'm going to wrap this in a div and move it out. If it lets me. There we go. And we'll call this button wrapper. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to be able to set this to space between. Click save and exit. And perfect. So you can see those are evenly distributed, but you can see I have an issue with my button right now. So let's go back in and fix that. On my button, we need to add a class here, header button wrapper. And we want to set that to flex and center center. That should solve our issue for us. And it seems that it did. I don't know why we're getting these issues over here. I guess we need to come back and fix these somehow or another. These got messed up. And it likely had to do with me going and deleting the stuff on the home page. And it always helps if I type right here, which I struggle with. And then down here, change this to link again. And I put tell in front. And we are back in business. I think this still has our color properly. Yep. All right, save. Exit. Save. Take a look on the front end here. And everything looks pretty good there. One thing I do need to fix in my header again though is that we're gonna go flex row or flex column, sorry. And I want everything centered. And my top bar is gonna have a max inline size of 2 rem. And actually, I think I have a variable for this. If you're not sure, you can always come into our cheat sheet here, and under variables, we can look at width, and the layout, we can do full width, content width, width safe. I think we want content width. I don't need it to rewrap my variable. Click save. Let's see if that fixes our issue. And of course, that messes with our background color. So I think what I'll do is take this and put it on my top bar here instead. Save. Inspect. And it's because I'm not centered on that one. Center, center, saving. Lots of back and forth here. Sometimes it just takes a little bit to get it all dialed in, and it looks like we did. One thing we can go and look at is once I exit this, if I add in a section and I just do .rand, this is going to give a random class so that I can go background of blue. I want to put this up here. Let's put a heading in there so that there's something in there. I'm not sure why. We're getting this extra spacing. Did I put that? That's because I put it on the wrong spot. Okay. Let's try that again. I'm just going to copy this and put it here. Helps if you put it in the right spot. All right, so we got that there. Sometimes I like doing that just to make sure that I have everything showing up properly here on my header, which I need to go back in. And I think on my inner, I'm gonna add some padding block of space excess, make that a little bit bigger. Said I had an error somewhere. Hopefully I didn't break anything. And I think on my button I need to make that a little bit bigger, but we have to do that out here. And I like that. Okay. So we got that all sorted out. The design is good. Next, we need to do our actual navigation menu, and we also need to do two other things. So I'm going to add in 2 anchor links, and of course I put them both in here, which I do not want. I'm going to move them all the way up here. All right, for these links, we're going to go skip to content, which I'm going to rename that. And this one is going to be, keep clicking on the wrong ones apparently. So I apologize, guys. So our main is going to be jumping to our main, and our skip to footer is going to be skipping to our footer. Now from here, I'm going to add in dot skip link, and you'll see it disappear. And I'm going to do that on this one too. So utility class from automatic CSS to automatically help style those and get them set up. I put those above my header as we want that to be the very first thing that we're able to link to if needed. All right, now down to our navigation. So here I want to set this to header navigation and a basic nav, which I'm going to come over to our loop manager. And on our basic nav here, you can see we have a bunch of JSON here. So you can do this one of two ways. You can do it kind of the long version of just manually typing these things in, going plumbing, and then in my drop down I can do all plumbing services, and here we can go plumbing.services. That. Our next drop down was going to be fixture installation, and this one and I'm only going to do a few of these top level ones and come back to the other ones, just so you can kind of see the gist of what I'm doing here, and then I'll go back through off screen and add them all in, because again, just like I showed you, in the last video, when I went in and created all my services, I have a total of 29 items here. So a whole bunch to get added in. And then when we look at our service area, we have another like 16, 17 items to get added in. So I want to make you guys watch me copy and paste those. The other thing you can do is just copy this structure that is listed here, paste it into your favorite LLM like ChatGPT or Grok or whatever, and a list of all of the services and their links, and it'll automatically build it for you. But I'll finish going through this, and I'll make a couple other ones here just so we have them. And this one, you can see it actually goes to a URL. So I'm going to take that out because I don't want it to actually link to anything. On that first one, we want it to just be drain cleaning services. And this one, I need to add my services in front. I think that's the right URL. I'll have to check that. And then this one is going to be we'll set this last one to about, and then I'm going to take this one out and that out. Your last one should not have the comma at the end. I'm going to hit save, close my loop manager, and you can see I have these here. I don't actually want my home on here, but we're going to add in a few more drop downs. And I think maybe in our next video, I'll come back through, finish this up, styling off these last few things and checking it out on mobile. Because a few things I want to do is going to be probably dropping off the we accept on mobile so that we just have the number up top here. And then I'm going to drop off the button as well, just to make that more mobile friendly. But yeah, you can see here that we have a start of our navigation here, and I think this is a good stopping point for now. I'll see you guys in the next video. It'll be out a little bit later. I got 2 done so far, and again, we'll start to tackle the footer in the next one as well. All right, see you in the next video. Thanks.